You are paying over $500 billion this year to a government that just got caught billing your money back to itself, and the guy in charge wants a pat on the back for it. Look, I have been following Canadian politics for a long time, and this week broke something loose that I genuinely cannot believe is not the biggest story in this country right now. One of Mark Carney's newest Liberal MPs, Lori Idlout, who just crossed the floor 10 days ago from the NDP with a big smile and a photo shoot with the Prime Minister, was caught expensing taxpayer money directly to her own business. 4 times. In the span of 8 months. To her own gallery, Carvings Nunavut, which she personally owns. She was writing off purchases to the House of Commons and pocketing the difference on the other end as the business owner. That is not a mistake. That is not a typo on a form. That is submitting your own shop on your government expense account 4 separate occasions and hoping nobody checks. Now she says it was all done in error and she has paid the money back. And sure, the total was around $1,756. I know that sounds small in the context of Ottawa, and believe me, compared to what I'm about to walk you through, it is practically pocket change. But buddy, here's the thing. This is not about the dollar amount. This is about the kind of person Mark Carney is hand-selecting to help him crawl his way to a majority government. She publicly called Carney's government disgusting as recently as last August. She said he ignored Nunavut and pitted indigenous nations against each other. She attended an NDP rally last Thursday, and then by Tuesday, she was walking into Liberal caucus beside the Prime Minister with a grin like she just won a 2-4 at the church raffle. And we are now finding out that while she was sitting as an NDP MP, collecting a taxpayer salary of almost $210,000 a year, she was also routing expense claims through her own storefront. You cannot make this up, eh? Now, here is where it gets really rich. This is the 4th MP to cross the floor and join Carney since last November. 4 MPs that Canadians did not vote Liberal have now quietly slid into the Liberal caucus, giving Carney a runway to a majority that Canadians never actually gave him. Pierre Poilievre has called it exactly what it is, backroom deals, and the polling backs that up. Most Canadians believe MPs who cross the floor should go back and face a by-election. Go home, knock on doors, and let the people you represent tell you if they are okay with your switch. But Carney has zero interest in that, because he knows exactly what would happen. So you have a Prime Minister assembling his majority by collecting defectors like hockey cards, and the latest one was already billing your money to her own shop before she even switched jerseys. But here is what really burns me, folks. That spending scandal involving Idlout is just a tiny fragment of the massive taxpayer money problem sitting right on top of Parliament Hill right now. Because this week, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation broke down the federal government's main estimates for the coming year, and the numbers are so bad, they hit you like a Zamboni going full speed through a Tim Hortons parking lot. Federal spending is climbing to $505.8 billion in the coming fiscal year. That is $17.7 billion more than last year. And last year was already the largest spending year in the history of this country outside of the pandemic. Carney is outspending Justin Trudeau. The man who spent a decade running deficits like they were collecting dust bunnies is now being outspent by the guy who told us he was the responsible adult who would finally clean up the mess. Carney literally said, and I want you to really hear this, the federal government has been spending too much. He said that with his own mouth, and then went right back to spending more of your money. The government plans to spend $26.6 billion on consultants, contractors, and outsourcing alone, just on that one category. That figure has more than doubled since the Liberals first took power in 2015. The bureaucracy keeps getting bigger. The outside consultants keep getting fatter contracts. And every Canadian family with 2 kids is personally on the hook for around $30,000 of federal debt each. That is your kids, folks. That is money they will spend their entire working lives paying back in interest before they ever see a single dollar of it do anything useful. Right now, as you listen to this, the federal government is paying $54 billion a year just in interest charges on the debt. Not paying down the debt, just covering the interest. That is more than Ottawa sends to the provinces for health care. So the next time a Liberal minister gets up in the House and talks about how much the federal government cares about your health, remind yourself that the federal government currently spends more money paying visa fees on its own credit card than it does keeping your local hospital funded. Every loonie you hand over in GST at the grocery checkout, every dollar, goes straight to interest payments on their reckless spending, and not a cent of it goes to anything the government promises you. And get this, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the one independent voice that is supposed to keep tabs on all of this and tell Canadians when the numbers stop adding up, that office is currently dark. Carney let the contract for the Parliamentary Budget Officer lapse and has not named a replacement. The OECD called that office the best parliamentary budget office in the world. Carney shut it down anyway. Right at the exact moment that the government tabled its biggest spending plan ever and is operating under its largest peacetime deficit in Canadian history. A deficit of $78.3 billion this year alone. And the one office whose entire job is to look at those numbers and tell Canadians what is really going on cannot do a single thing, cannot publish a single report, cannot answer a single question from an MP, cannot dig into a single line item. You do not shut down your fiscal watchdog by accident. You shut it down because the numbers are bad enough that you do not want an independent voice talking about them. Now, the Fraser Institute went through Carney's so-called spending review this week, the one the finance minister is calling ambitious. The one they say found $60 billion in savings over 5 years. And here is the truth about that. The government is not actually cutting $60 billion. They are not actually reducing spending by a single dollar. What they are doing is slowing down the rate at which they plan to increase spending. That is it. That is the savings. They were going to grow government even faster, and now they are growing it slightly less fast. Program spending is still going up 14.2% between now and 2029. That is a nominal increase of $69.9 billion. You read that right. They found $60 billion in savings and are still increasing spending by nearly $70 billion. That math does not work for you or me at our kitchen tables, and it does not work for Canada either. Carney plans to add $324 billion to the federal debt by the year 2030. For context, Trudeau projected adding $154 billion over the same period. Carney is on track to more than double Trudeau's borrowing. And he told you he was different. Look, folks, this is what I want you to sit with today. There is a pattern here, and it runs clean through everything happening in Ottawa right now. An MP gets caught expensing her own shop on the taxpayer dime, gets welcomed with open arms to the Liberal caucus. The government is spending over $500 billion, borrowing like a house on fire, and has shut down the only office designed to hold them accountable for it. And the mainstream media, CBC especially, is too busy writing puff pieces about what a steady hand Carney is to connect any of these dots for you. You deserve better than this, Canada. You deserve a government that treats your money like it belongs to you, because it does. Every one of those billions is taken from real people. People filling up at the pump, people trying to afford groceries, people working 2 jobs who cannot get ahead no matter how hard they grind. The government does not produce wealth. It takes yours. And right now it is taking more of yours than at any other time in this country's peacetime history. Paying itself first, paying consultants second, and getting around to you somewhere after the interest bill is covered. One more thing before I go. The parliamentary budget officer, the watchdog that Carney silenced, had already warned that his deficit path was not sustainable before the lights went out. That warning was the last thing that office published. Not sustainable. Those were the last words before Carney pulled the plug. Remember that next time he gets up and tells you he has a plan.